and I don't know what might happen in the Republican, you spent your career, in Republican politics, and you know that so well. Can you think of anything that is going to derail Trump's momentum thus far? He is only, as he's been indicted, his lead has only expanded. He skipped the debate, his lead expanded. I don't know what might happen to change things up.
I think what has to happen
And
is,
by the way, this is while polls show that right now, Trump and Biden are statistically tied in a general election. Recent poll shows Nikki Haley would beat Joe Biden. But
so
Nikki Haley's down in single digits and Trump is up at 50%.
I suspect you will see Nikki Haley move in New Hampshire. She's
Really?
she's going to be the person with momentum in the fall. But in order for Trump to go down, he has to lose Iowa and New Hampshire. And I think really the only candidate that can get him in Iowa is Tim Scott. And there's really no evidence to suggest that it's coming together for him. New Hampshire is a little bit different. And I think I was just in the state. My parents live in the state, sister lives in the state, and a lot of political experience there. I will say this, having driven down from Montreal, kind of in the northern part of New Hampshire, the lower part of the state is separated by Franconia Notch, right? So you have above the notch, below the notch. Above the notch is kind of rural. That would have been General Baldock territory in the last Senate election. But above the notch, there's an awful lot of Bobby Kennedy signs. And you wouldn't expect
I did a town hall with him
to see them there. And so, one of the features I think about that I think is one of the oddest aspects of this campaign is that the coverage of it is incessantly binary, in meaning that Trump Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Now, either the no labels people have the money or they don't to get on the ballot, or they don't. We're gonna find out soon if that's a real thing. But Democratic Party doesn't have a vote on whether no labels is going to field the campaign. They don't get a vote on Bobby Kennedy running as a libertarian. So
I think he might, by the way. I'm just guessing, but
that we have 5 candidates on a ballot of some prominence from Cornell West and on down, and
mm-hmm.
a political system that is unresponsive in a country where there's 132 different choices of ketchup. Is going to demand different choices at the end of the day. And so I think that's one of the things we're watching is politics. Is the glass going to break after the tension it's been under over the last 7 years? I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest.
What happens, do you think, if we do have a ballot that it doesn't just have Trump and Biden on it as the Democratic and Republican nominees, but a RFK Jr. and a Cornell West, and who knows else? Maybe Joe Manchin changes his mind and jumps in. I don't think he will, but I don't know.
The first thing it would do is, if you had more credible candidates on it, it expands the number of swing states, right? From like our 15, 16 to 25, 30, 35. A real legitimate three-way race puts the race into play in about 42 states, which we haven't seen in a very, very long time. But just as a practical matter, right? If you listen to official Washington Democrats talk about this, what I hear them say is basically, we can't win a three-way race. And here's the deal. This is not a track event, right? That's not what politics is, right? It's not fair. It's not an even race. One side runs uphill, one runs down. One's got ropes, one doesn't. One's got water, one doesn't, right? It sucks. Right. I was, when I ran John McCain's campaign, was outspent by $350 million.
Yeah.
In a three-way race, if you're Joe Biden and his team, you have to figure out how to win that race. And if you can't win that race and you go into it saying we can't conceivably win a three-way race, then the party as an institution really has to examine that and say, well, this is going to be what it's going to be. And we ought to have someone on the ballot who at least gives us a de minimis chance to be able to win. But you can't forfeit a presidential campaign in August of 2023 on the hypothetical probabilities that Cornell West would be there, that And there's a mythology, right? And I don't accept it, right? Hillary Clinton did not lose the election because Jill Stein was on the ballot. There's a lot of reasons she lost the election. That wasn't particularly an acute one. And I say this to someone who admires her. So I think that there's always a lot of revisionism after an election. We tend to look at elections and say, well, the result was caused by the last major event of it, as opposed to the first major occurrence in it. And so what's happened, why it happened, what's happening now, what it means, I think there's a lot of subjectivity on this stuff, depending on how you see the world. Other than to say, I think we're in a very volatile moment, and volatility will drive a lot of disruption in this cycle, is what I think.
And I'm curious if you do think there's any chance that Biden will step down.
Yeah, I think any day. There's a story in Axios, and I have a lot of respect, a lot of admiration for President Biden, but as a practical matter, this is true. If you read the Axios story today, which is about the lengths the advance team, right, has taken to prevent him from falling, tripping, any of the issues that come from age. As someone who's run an organization, I think it's easy to write, if you're working for Politico or Axios, right, that there's some magical 20-something staffer out there who's got the ability to keep the president from tripping. Now, I don't have the ability to keep my 78-year-old dad from tripping, right? Or my mom, and they don't with the president. So he's wearing sneakers, not dress shoes. He's up the short stairs, not the long one. And you look at an event he was at last week. It was not generally reported, though. It was reported in the poll report, right? That he spoke to 123 of the biggest donors in the Democratic Party, talked about his origin story for his race, and then he repeated it seconds later, almost verbatim, word for word, right? You can look at the instances when he got up on Nicole Wallace's show.
And walked out.
Off the set. And that's tough to do, because if you're on a live TV set, it's a live TV set. So at any day, disconnect. If the president froze like Mitch McConnell did, it's over.
It's over. That's what I mean by it.
You fall down the steps of the plane, it's over.
So what is the Democratic Party? What are they all doing in case that happens? Because listen, Mitch McConnell fell. That's why he's having, according to his doctor, these weird freezing moments, because he had a terrible concussion after falling. Barbara Walters fell at the French embassy in Washington, D.C. She was never the same after that.
Right.
My mom fell last Thanksgiving. She was in the hospital for a week because she hit her head. When you are in your 80s and you fall, it is a serious event.
Very serious.
And this is a president who looks unsteady often when he's walking. And all it takes is tripping and falling on your way to go brush your teeth in the morning.
I'm not. So I've lived through this, right? Which happened over the rise of Trump in the Republican Party. It's just an objective fact that every person who went on television in 2015, 2016, with incredibly few exceptions, who was a Republican, said one thing on the camera, said one thing off the camera about him. Joe Scarborough just said this regarding Democrats who go on his show. Every Democrat who comes on says one thing on the air, says another thing about this off the air.
What are they saying off the air?
Off the air, every Democrat says they don't think that Biden is capable of running a winning election. No one wants to be first, right? No one wants to be on point. But none of this is lost on the American people, who know intuitively
Yes, that's what I mean. We were
Right?
talking about this at the beginning.
That it's all
And
bullshit.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so you never miss a video. Also, for more content just like this, please consider joining our Warning Premium community. You can find out more in the description below.